Welcome to r/Maliciouscompliance, where a workplace Karen gets called out for watching porn at the office. So, I've worked in IT most of my life. One day in a job I was in, it was slow, so the manager asked me to check the firewall logs for anything dodgy. Pretty soon, I find indications of a female staff member accessing some racy content of the adult nature. This staff member had a reputation for blaming her slow productivity on her computer/network/mouse, etc., so she was given no quarter. I go up to the large office where she was surrounded by many other staff members, but her monitors were facing a wall and only she can see them. I politely asked to speak to her in private for a moment in a meeting room. Her response, "No, I don't have time, I'm too busy." Again, I quietly said it would be in her best interest to have this conversation discreetly. "Look, stop wasting my time and say what you need to say." I pause, clear my throat, and say loud and clear, "Ahem. Okay, the IT manager has asked that you stop accessing bondage porn sites on your work computer." There's a moment of stunned silence where the staff member turns scarlet. And everyone looked at her, including her manager. "Okay, see you later." And I turned and left the office. Oh man. A comment from Hard Harry Liv says it best. She was too busy to step away. Her hands were tied. Like, she has a perfect defense. The manager is like, you really can't look at that stuff in the office. "I know, I've been so bad, you should punish me." And the manager's like, that's okay, just don't do it anymore. Our next Reddit post is from Zenetx. This story happened to me in my college days many years ago, and to this day, whenever I remember it, I let out a smile. I graduated in a traditional and very strict engineering school. At that time, there were no substitutive exams of any kind, no matter the reason. So it wasn't uncommon for people to fail subjects because they couldn't attend the test day. In the end of my last year, I don't know how or why, since I took the vaccine, I got chickenpox. Luckily for me, I didn't suffer at all. Maybe a day with mild fever, and that's it. All the itching was completely mitigated with medicine, although externally I looked really bad. More concerned about my appearance than anything, I called and asked if I could take my exam another day. The lady who answered it immediately denied my request, as expected. Then, being as patient and kind as possible, I tried to explain my situation. But she was very rude and cut my explanation short, not letting me even say what my illness was. As a last attempt, I asked if at least I could take the exam in a separate classroom. Then she told me to wait on the line. I heard some people talking in the background and laughing. After she left me hanging for more than 10 minutes, she comes back just to say that there's no way. So I thanked her and hung up. I don't really know what the heck they expected. That I didn't come in and failed on my very last test? Heck no. So I went, looking absolutely hideous. Not a square inch of my skin didn't have a mad rash, including my face. In the class, after the monitor arrives, he told me to remove my sunglasses and cap, as per regulations, and so I did, including my jacket and medical face mask. Oh boy, I'll never forget his facial expression. And then my fun begins. During the test, I start to fake cough like a man about to die. I was getting really good at my act. It was really amusing seeing the monitor's reaction going from little apprehension to total panic. Until he gave up and left, leaving the class unattended. Barely able to hold my bursting laugh at this point, my colleague, who got what was going on, looked at me, also holding his laugh and shaking his head. In the end, I did pretty well in the exam and had my fun, including paying a visit to the lady who left me hanging. Later on, after graduation, I found out through a friend that I became sort of a famous joke, like the guy who came back from the dead to attend his exam. What I can't get over is that the school didn't want to know what disease he had. Like, if the guy's got the Black Plague or Ebola, I'd kinda want to know. Please don't come into class, dude. And then, a man in his 30s has a similar reply in the comments. I had something similar to this, but with a job back when I was 18 or 19. I was working at an electronics store in the city center, and this place was what one would call a flagship store, so it was extremely busy all the time, all day long. Anyway, so I suffer from asthma, and every winter there's a high chance of me getting a bronchial infection. And one day, I'm told to work on the shop floor by the door during last week of November, and I tell my manager I can't do that because I'll get sick as I have my stuff. Obviously, he doesn't believe me, so I'm at the front of the store with doors open all day and finish my shift as per usual. Go off for the weekend, and sure as expected, I get my thing going. Monday morning, I call in and explain I'm sick and that I have an infection. I've been to the doctor and been prescribed antibiotics. My manager, of course, the total wanker he is, doesn't believe me and says that I have to come in now. So I say, no problem, I'll come in. Now, let me tell you, this kind of illness is no joke. You basically can't breathe. You're sweating constantly and coughing non-stop. It makes it look like you're suffering from the Black Plague. So I get to the store and go to the manager and say, look, I'm really sick. Are you sure you want me to do this? He still thinks I'm faking or exaggerating. So I go out in my uniform, head downstairs to the tech department, and sure enough, in a few minutes, I get a customer approach me to ask about setting up a baby camera above her crib that's wireless. As I started to reply to her, I started to cough uncontrollably. And you know how it is with phlegm and stuff. I had to get rid of everything into a tissue. Well, roll of tissues. She immediately calls the manager and asks what the flip I'm doing at work in this state. She's a doctor and tells me to leave work immediately in front of my manager. He, of course, has the most red face you can imagine and agreed. Next day I went to my doctor and was told because of further stressing my system, I need to be off work for at least 6 weeks. And that's how I got paid work vacation through that entire Christmas period. Felt bad for the coworkers, but employers and people in charge need to not screw around when people tell them they're ill. It's freaking reckless and dangerous, to be honest. Our next Reddit post is from thebalf. So I'm a manager in a call center with no office dress code. Work polo tops are available, but really anything goes. T-shirts, leggings, jeans, caps, shorts. The issue that can pop up in the summer is girls wearing denim shirts that are deemed too short, or tops that are too short, and senior management saying that too much skin is being displayed. However, my story is about a girl named Carly who I had on my team. In October in Scotland, it's cold here, so it's more winter wear. She had on black leggings with denim shorts over them and Ugg boots. Perfectly fine in my opinion, no skin was on display. My manager said the shorts were too short, but I tried to argue the leggings covered her, so it was in no way inappropriate. As usual, management won, so I had to tell her the shorts were too short, but I reminded her leggings were fine, which planted the malicious compliance seed. She knew what to do, so she stood up and made a scene to announce the shorts were too short, but she could fix it. She stood in front of everyone, undid her shorts, pulled them down in her version of a stripper on stage, took them off, folded them and put them in her bag, sat down and took another call. This made my day, and the look on my manager's face was priceless. I reminded her it was exactly what she'd asked for, but clearly she thought Carly would have done this in the bathroom. This reminds me of an earlier video when there was some teacher who was saying that a girl was showing too much skin because you could see her shoulders. And I asked you guys if that's really what high school is like, if you can't show your shoulders anymore. And a bunch of people confirmed, like, yes, apparently you can't show shoulders in high school. Like, what dude out there goes to Pornhub and types in hot naked shoulders? Sometimes these dress codes are just ridiculous. Our next Reddit post is from Necrobiohazard. Quite some time ago, I used to work at Walmart, and honestly, it was by far the worst job I've ever had. I could go on for hours about all the horror stories I have from that place. One story in particular I feel is a good fit here. You see, the store I worked in had a rule that if you see a spill, you are to guard the area to keep customers from slipping and falling. You were not to leave the spill for any reason while you flagged down another employee so that they could fetch cleaning supplies. Only managers and cleaning crews had radios. I understand the logic here, as a lawsuit would certainly cost much more than an hourly employee's time standing next to a spill until it was cleaned up. However, there are a few issues with this in practice. I worked the evening shift in the meat department, and most days I was the only person in my department. I was situated between frozen foods and produce, which more often than not only had one-person shifts as well, but they also closed much earlier than my department. This meant that I was the only person in my corner of the store for about half of my shift. If I came across a spill, there was no telling how long I would have to wait around for another employee to come by because there was literally nobody else working in or around my area. Also, being in the meat department, we had multiple cleaning stations all around. One was always a few steps away. One day while working alone, I noticed a small spill. So I stood next to it per procedure for about 10 minutes. In this time, nobody, customer nor coworker, had even entered my view. I couldn't help but think how dumb this was, as I could see a cleaning station just on the other side of a bunker. I decided to throw in the flag and just go get the cleaning supplies and take care of it myself. Because even if a customer did come around, I could still see the spill and easily call out to them to watch their step. Unsurprisingly, I was able to make the round trip without any incidents. As I was cleaning it, a manager came walking up and took notice of me. "What happened here?" "Just a spill. I've got it all sorted." "Did you just happen to have cleaning supplies on you?" "No, but they were just right there. I was able to fetch them without losing sight of the spill." "That's not how we do things. Someone could have gotten hurt." "No, as I could have called to anyone that came near it. I was never more than a few steps away." "Doesn't matter. You should have stood next to the spill and waited for someone else to come by." This went on for a few minutes, but the manager was not budging, so I conceded. That wasn't good enough for him, as he then proceeded to write me up for negligence and unsafe work practices. I was livid, but I was also a college student and needed the job, so I just kept quiet and returned to my shift. A week or so later, as I was once again the only person working in my corner of the store, I happened upon another spill. This time I shrugged and decided to guard it as if my job depended on it. I checked my watch and noticed that I had about 3 hours left on my shift and had a small laugh at the thought that I might be standing in that spot guarding a puddle instead of closing my department. 10 minutes passed. 30 minutes passed. 1 hour passed. Around this time, I was bored out of my mind. But then I heard a call over the intercom system that made it so much more worth it. "We need an associate from the meat department to the back for a truck." This was followed by a few other calls for other departments for their trucks arriving as well. I started laughing out loud at this, because I knew that this meant that the very few people that were likely to come by my department were now at the loading dock unloading trucks while I stood guard over my puddle. A few minutes passed before I heard the second call. "We need an associate from the meat department to the back for a truck." I just stood there, counting the lights on the ceiling. 1 hour left on my shift, and there still had not been a single fellow employee walk by. I assumed everyone was starting to finish up their own trucks by this point and would likely soon have to start unloading my truck as well. I was watching the minutes go by in anticipation, trying to decide if someone would come find me before my shift ended or not. I got my answer 15 minutes before the end of my shift as the very same manager from before came storming through the meat department, furious. We made eye contact, and he stormed over to me and started yelling about how they've been calling for me to unload the truck, and how they're now behind schedule, and so on. Once he took a breath long enough for me to speak, I asked simply, "Can you go to a spill station and grab something to clean this up? I've been here a while now." He glanced down at the puddle next to me, and I thought he was going to explode. "You mean to tell me you didn't unload the truck because you were watching a spill?" "Yes." "Why didn't you just clean it up?" "But leaving the spill would be unsafe for any customers. Besides, you wrote me up for doing that very thing recently, right?" The manager tossed his hands up in defeat and walked the 15 steps away to the nearest spill station and returned with supplies that he promptly gave me to clean the spill myself. Once you're done, go back to the loading dock and start on your truck. Sorry, I have only about 10 minutes left on my shift, and as I've been standing here guarding the spill, I never got my second break. So I'm going to the break room for a bit before clocking out. You'll need to find someone to close down my department as well. At this, the manager just stomped off in a rage. I cleaned up the spill, played on my phone in the break room for a bit, and clocked out with a smile on my face. I know that the manager just made someone else do all the work and wasn't personally affected by this. But knowing that I could be a thorn in his side was enough for me. Stories like these are why I wake up in the morning. This is pure, concentrated, malicious compliance. You can feel the malice, and it's perfect compliance. Oh, I can just imagine OP's face as he's grinning at this stupid manager. Our next Reddit post is from fakecigarettes. This malicious act of compliance is still ongoing. For some context, I'm a university student who's living on my parents' couch for the next 2 weeks before I move back into my school's town. They are currently redoing their pool with employees working Monday through Friday. I pay my own rent at a room near my university, so I signed up for a clinical trial to take off the added burden of paying for my expensive medicine while getting some grocery money at the same time. I had an appointment early this morning for the trial, and I told my mom about it last night. She immediately disapproved, stating that she didn't want me to be a guinea pig for money. So she woke up before me and took my car out so I couldn't drive it. The only other car in the driveway is her huge truck, which I'm uncomfortable driving, but will if I have to. So I called her and told her that because she took my car, I'll be driving her truck to the appointment instead. She, of course, flipped her lid and screamed at me about being a sellout. Y'all, I'm just trying to get some grocery money here. My mom also made it clear that she has her own plans and won't be back with my car until later today. She then ended the call saying that I am, in no circumstances, allowed to drive her car. Fine, whatever. I rescheduled my appointment and went back to the couch to try to sleep when the pool worker showed up. They have a huge concrete truck that can only be used when the driveway is empty. But my mom's car is, of course, plopped in the middle of it. So they can't start working until my mom's truck is moved out of the driveway. And with no one else home, this means that I'm the only one who can do it. Oh, except for the fact that I am in no circumstances allowed to drive her car. Whoops. That was r/malicious compliance. And if you want to maliciously comply, then hit that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel because I put out new Reddit content every single day.